Well, good morning, and thank you very much for inviting ADB to be part of this conversation. I have actually quite a long slide, but I'm not going to go through every one. It's more intended as a resource that you can get data from later. But we're very happy to be having this conversation, particularly about, because our work in Asia Pacific depends very much on private companies for implementing these projects, which have been already discussed, and also for making them a success. So we have a strong interest in seeing, we hope, many of you working on projects in ADB in the future. Maybe I could just start. I think I was told, don't talk too much about ADB because you all know. But anyway, just in case, I shall start with just a little bit of an overview of who we are. Asia Pacific's quite a big place, half the world. We work in 41 developing member countries, as we call them. Ranges from everything from Armenia to the People's Republic of China, India, Nauru, Fiji. So a very broad swathe of countries. Italy's been a founding member of ADB since 1966 and actually has a lot invested. I think it's $2.7 billion worth of capital of shares. So Italy has a major stake in that, and we're very grateful for the support we've had over the years for funding and for various things. So, like the other banks you've heard from, we give loans, grants, guarantees. You have many instruments to make these projects happen. So at the bottom, you'll see, probably in smaller font than you would like, these are our biggest borrowers: India, China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Indonesia. Vietnam used to be one for the sovereign side, but because of their borrowing ceiling, it's been curtailed somewhat in recent years. So just some numbers to start off with. Projects under administration. We have, this is the value of the ADB financing, $104 billion for about 1,000 projects. Now, if you look at the right-hand side, energy is the second biggest sector we are involved in. Transport, the biggest; energy, the second biggest. You know, the old joke used to be ADB used to stand for Asian Dams and Bridges because of what we were associated with. Now, the infrastructure is still very strong, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon. And there you see the regional differentiation. Again, you won't see a surprise. Primarily South Asia, Southeast, East, but a lot of projects in various places around Asia. We also work on, now you'll see in recent years, COVID did knock us off course. When the pandemic hit, we said we would like to keep the current portfolio, the current plan, but the demand was so strong to cater for COVID support. That's why you'll see energy was knocked off into third place. We trust we will get through the pandemic and energy will take again its rightful place. The growth there in ADB has been very much the private sector. So I don't know how much, I'd be interested to talk later in the one-on-one conversations how much this area is also of interest. But if you look at the numbers, the current value is $14.4 billion. And we do have some Italian companies actually involved in that one. I saw, I don't know if Valve Italia is here, and we also have Sesi, which are, thank you, thank you very much. So we're partnering, I see, in Armenia on a gas power plant there. So it's good to see Italian representation, not just in our sovereign, the public sector portfolio, but also the private one. So moving on, in 2021, again, this is an unusual year because of COVID. We were very much focused on helping countries get through the pandemic. If you look at the total procurement, the value of contracts awarded through ADB, it's about 10.5 billion euros, roughly. In the orange bit, you will see this is all COVID related. So think of it as $7.5 billion worth of regular procurement. Not small, but again, COVID is still having that major impact. So actually my job, thanks for your kind introduction, my job is to represent ADB in Europe, where we also have the overview of different European countries where they stand. If I take the Bundesliga sort of approach, where does Italy stand? It's somewhere in the middle, which is not like in the football, where it's at the top, But I think we have Germany and Turkey are the two most successful countries of origin for participation in ADB projects. And so we're very interested to talk also, what can we do more with Italy? So So it's probably a little bit small, but it will be in the presentation. If I look at European representation, if I can find the slide. Yeah, here it is. If we look by goods, you see some, you won't be surprised by some of these countries. By goods, it's primarily China, India as the top. Maybe also not a surprise. These are, China and India are two huge economies which account for 2/3 of Asia's population. So it's maybe not a surprise that they're at the top. You do see others, Sweden in 2018, Turkey. Very often they come through because of a particularly large contract. But Europe is on the map, but not dominant. Works. Germany, I think there you see, is the lone European entrant into this particular contest. And again, you'll see Asian countries represented most. But having said that, we count the subsidiary of, let's say, Siemens in Pakistan as a Pakistani company. So you have to look at the statistics. We have all this information online, and it's very good to study them. Now, consulting services is quite different. There you see strong representation. UK, Germany, France. Not Italy. So again, these are all things which, we would love to be working more with Italians. Most importantly, I think our clients, the people who borrow from us, want the biggest possible selection. They want the best choice, I would say, to choose from. So in future, it would be really great to see more ITA appear on this table. Biggest suppliers by amount, just who actually gets the contracts. UNICEF is not normally who you would expect. COVID explains that. Again, the Sinovac Life Sciences, COVID. So again, this is something which you see depends very much on the actual demand we're facing. I shall rush through. By amount, in terms of works, Larsen and Toubro, who I believe are Indian-based. Number 2, Siemens, very much renewable energy, tends to be there, and rail. You'll see another European entrant there, and number 5 from Spain, Acciona Construction. We're financing this major rail link from Manila up to the former US Air Base in Clark, and the Spanish company Acciona, their Philippine subsidiary, got this quite major contract. So one thing I hear a lot actually in Frankfurt, in Europe, is that is it possible for Europeans to get contracts? Yes. Look at Acciona. It's possible. So by amount, Aegis International, I believe, is French, and you see, in terms of consulting services, here we have one company getting over $110 million worth of contracts in that particular period. The pattern we see time and time again, a company does good work for us, or most importantly, the people whose projects actually are owned by them, the countries, the developing countries. If it works well, they get repeat business time and time again. So a company like Aegis International at the top, $110 million worth of contracts. This is not bad business. This is way too small, but it's intended for reading at home or on the train or however you're traveling. We have a very nice fact sheet on Italy, which I would suggest to read at leisure. But if I can just bring out a couple of statistics. So since in total, Italy has had $1.5 billion worth of contracts from ADB since 1966. 336 contracts on top of it for consulting, 240 million. So these are very respectable statistics. But again, it's middle of the Bundesliga. It's not at the bottom, not at the top. Room for improvement, I would say. The most successful sector for Italy is actually transport. Energy, I think we already noticed, I think Valve Italia, for example, who's been working with ADB. The biggest contractor from Italy is, forgive me if I don't pronounce it right, Todini Costruzioni, who got $84 million worth of contracts just in the last few years. So middle of the Bundesliga, could be up. Now, one area, a growth area in ADB is the public-private partnerships. And again, this is all for reading at leisure. About 10 years ago, we embarked down a PPP route. I actually was very skeptical. I was on the working group. I said, this won't work in the Philippines. I had to eat my hat. We are now involved in PPP projects in a variety of really interesting projects in Uzbekistan, the Philippines, Azerbaijan, of all different types. One thing I think from ADB we'd like to learn as well is what interest is there among the Italian business community to work on the PPPs. Our job is primarily to advise the governments as transaction advisors, put together a good project, and then they go and find financing. Could be from us, could be from others, but there are lots of opportunities coming through in the PPP area in many countries, much more than I actually did expect. So, key energy challenges. I mean, you saw us knocked off course, COVID. Access, a lot of people in Asia don't have electricity. The statistic, 1.7 billion people without access to clean cooking. So we have no shortage of demand. Our people in the different offices in Asia are hearing from our borrowers, do more energy. We need energy, very much. Climate, of course, this is not least with all the COP discussions. I think Asia is what, about 2/3 of all energy in Asia comes from coal. Huge need to make that clean. Also, the good news is that our clients are telling us, please ADB, you help out with this. So, we also see, I think it was mentioned earlier, we see the cost of renewable energy coming down. That increases the willingness of the finance ministry to borrow from us and do more RE projects. So this is all good news. Again, I shall race through. Energy sector, I said it's about 20% of our total portfolio. Clean energy, 52%. And I think the presentation from World Bank earlier, I think you mentioned also, what's the point of having all this wonderful energy generated if it doesn't go anywhere? So the transmission distribution is still a major portion. I don't expect that to change anytime soon. Climate financing is increasingly as well coming through. Our own funding, the Green Climate Fund, partnerships with the other development banks, particularly I think World Bank, the climate investment funds. There is a lot of climate funding coming through. Energy is still going to be very dominant. So this is the energy sector portfolio. Increasing, decreasing. I think this will go back up again. Knock on wood, because it's so much pandemic related. And our countries are dealing with so many different crises, inflation, food, Russian invasion of Ukraine, you name it. So a bit of normality is needed, but long run, we are trying to get this back on track as a priority, in which case I hope this translates into opportunities for you. So, yeah, I shall move on here. We have very quickly on our policy, we adopted a new policy. We're not financing coal. We're very focused on renewable energies. We're focused on the institutional building. As a transition, we will support gas, but the focus is really on renewables. Again, I'm very happy to talk and give you all the references you might need to find out more. We're also happy to talk, of course. We were also asked to talk about some particular sample projects. Uzbekistan, the solar power project, that's actually on a PPP basis. Very interesting. We have a mega project in China, the Beijing-Tianjin-Hebei air pollution project. It's a huge, complex one which we're doing together with KfW and European Investment Bank. But also in Tonga, in India, Cambodia. Again, there's a lot of very interesting projects. 1,000 projects in total. I'm sure you'll find things which are of interest. So, again, I would suggest to read this. We're always happy to talk more. Behind every single one of these projects, there's a team, a project, and a project manager, a counterpart in country. We are happy to talk. We like talking because it gives us ideas, it helps us come up with better projects. Please don't hesitate to get in touch. Do I have still time?
1 minute.
Okay, almost there. So where are we going in the future? Low carbon energy transition. Indonesia, there's some fascinating work coming through. And again, it was discussed earlier, the energy transition mechanism. We have not just the energy people in Indonesia, but the finance minister herself, really strongly pushing for energy transition, buying up coal-fired power plants, replacing them with renewable energies. So the really exciting stuff happening. ADB doesn't do these projects. It's people like you who do these projects, who have to inspire, who have to implement and frankly make our lives easier by doing successful projects. So other themes coming through, digitalization. One last comment I would like to do. There's more here. It's all there in the presentation. Many different clean energy projects. Everything's on our website. Even if I sit in my office in Frankfurt, I want to find out information about an ADB project, I go to our own website. Everything that we have is available to you. Takes a little bit of navigation, but it can all be found. Bidding strategies, yeah, I think I will leave that. But basically, the key thing is recognizing who's the client. In my experience, after almost 30 years in development banks, it's good quality. Recognizing who the client is, adapting. I was country director to Mongolia. First thing, does it work at -40? You know, sort of understanding the local context. Things like this. This is quite obvious, and happy to talk further. So I hope that didn't go over my time. Thank you very much.